this is Cotton Stoops, and today's HTUC video is on Hollibunch, one of the best or only Lumions in the 2022 winter event of Lumion Legacy. It does have some potential, and we'll be talking about that in today's video, with the counters and checks as well as the teammates and the sets Hollibunch can run, and the weaknesses, resistances, and roles Hollibunch can play, and my final thoughts on Hollibunch's impact on the metagame. This video will be how to use and counter Hollibunch. So the first question we must ask is the role that Hollibunch plays, and this is a very easy question to answer because of the base stats. His base stats is really mid, for its HP, melee attack, rage attack, and speed all being below 60, which is not really the best. Even though with the highest defenses you can possibly get, HP is probably not really the best compared with that defenses. So Hollibunch, even if it does have the best defenses in the world, which it probably has because it does have 125 in both defenses, it's still not going to be tanking the most in this metagame. Not to mention the fact that Hollibunch also doesn't have good recovery, so it's stuck with that. However, it does have 100 energy, and this will be playing in with the role that Hollibunch can play, and it does have a perceptibly strong attack stats with its ability. If you didn't know, its ability does scale with its energy, so it's going to be hitting a lot harder, and I'll be explaining that in the set section. It is kind of bulky, and of course, like I said earlier, its HP holds it down. So let's talk about its weaknesses and resistances with the next slide. Hollibunch's typing of plant and light is very simple because it does have 5 resistances to water, plant, electric, earth, and ancient, and 2 immunities to light and spirit. Water types like Luminami, Barblast, and Fiscarna are great stuff to switch in on, as well as plant types like Totab is pretty good for Hollibunch. Earth types like Tyrex, Boneki, and Cinnamars are great stuff to switch in on, and ancient types like Obsidian is good to switch in on as well. You also do have a light immunity to Valkyrie, Nemare, and other light types and other Hollibunches, and spirit immunities to Vesperatu and Harvestek. Do note that you are not going to be having the best matches against all of these typings. Just know that you can resist them when you can. And you have 4 weaknesses to ice, bug, toxic, and metal, and a major resistance, or weakness in this case, to dark. Dark is really bad because now you're going to be hit by Eclipse and Vesperatu even harder. Ice types like the new ice types that are introduced in this game, Tungulin, Ember, and Wintrix will also hit you pretty hard. Bug types like Garbantus and Harvestek will also hit you hard as well. Toxic types like Barblast and Gobizemic, and finally the metal types like Valkyrie, Tyrex, Stratosaur, Protogon, and Oxydrake will hit you very hard as well. You have to watch out because your weaknesses are very bad, but you do have good resistances which will keep you alive in the battle. So with that out of the way, let's talk about Hollibunch's sets. The Wallbreaker set for Hollibunch is actually pretty good. You can try running a defensive set, but I obviously think that because of its defensive typing, it does not have the best matchups against most of the Wallbreakers, and like I said earlier, it is very slow, so it's not going to have the best matchups against those offensive Lumions. The ability will be Festive Spirit because it is the only ability, and the personality is going to be Hyper or a defensive personality. Hollibunch has good enough coverage and power to hit walls super effectively, and like I said earlier, a defensive set is not really the best, and Hyper can boost your Festive Spirit, which admittedly is very good, and I'll be talking about that later in the counters and checks section, so just bear with me. The ability, or not ability, but the item of choice will be Health Amulet. You can of course run other items if you want to, like an Essence or a Pearl or a Shell. But Health Amulet will be good because you do not have recovery and you might as well abuse those defenses. And the moveset of choice, Flash and Flee, Nature's Force, and Nova Blast will be your main 3 moves. You do not have any other good coverage, so this is going to be the best for you. And Peace of Mind, of course, it is to set up. Because you are running Flash and Flee, you can also run other moves like Sap Plant, which will make your Peace of Mind not a waste if you do choose to click Flash and Flee. But personally, I think this is the best moveset. And finally, the TPs. Since your base stats don't really have the best things to make yourself into 500 TPs, we will be having a few TPs left over. 200 HPs to max out that HP stat so those defenses don't really look as low as they should be looking. That 200 energy will make sure to keep your Festive Spirit ability even more powerful, and 88 melee defense is just so we can live, or not live, but a 6.3% chance to live a battering ram from a very robust Garbantis. If the Garbantis is running robust and a bug essence, however, that battering ram is going to kill you, and the 8 range defense is leftovers. So with that out of the way, let's talk about the counters it checks as well as its teammates. Defensive counters is not a lot, and it is mostly revolved around very niche Lumians because of how strong Hyper and Festive Spirit can actually be. Specifically, Venilin and Very Clever Stratosaur will be your best answers along with Chartiki. Chartiki does resist and be immune to most of its moves, and Venilin and Stratosaur, of course, they're really bulky in the range defense side, so you can just use them against Hollibunch. However, you can also use Clever Wobblisk with the Health Amulet, Very Clever Malmert, Manitoad, and Searonite. But honestly, most of these guys are not really that great, so run Chartiki, Very Clever Searonite with the Heavy Shield, and Venilin and Stratosaur if you really want to deal with this thing defensively. And for the offensive counters and checks, since Hollibunch does have a lot of weaknesses and it is one of the slowest things in the game, you can run a lot of Lumians. This is just a few examples, but stuff like Hunter, Zulong, Protagon, Volcoloa, Namare, and a lot of fast Lumians like C.B.O, Zeppelin, and all of those stuff can be really good answers for Hollibunch. These are just some examples of what can hit Hollibunch super effectively. You can also throw in Garbantis in there as well, along with Boneki too, so that's pretty good. Just run a lot of offensive Lumians that can hit Hollibunch super effectively, which is the main problem with Hollibunch. It has a lot of good matchups, or not a lot of good matchups in its favor, and most of the offensive Lumians can hit it super effectively that are in the metagame. And finally, let's talk about the teammates section for Hollibunch. There are a lot of great stuff that you can run, and specifically Bane of Haste users like Ferroglyph, Wakalaka, Joltooth, and some other stuff in the defensive teammate section. Most of the time you want to run most earth types like Colossotrops, or not earth types, but Lumians that can hit the stuff that it is weak to, mostly Gargolem Attack, C.B.O, Colossotrops, and Teclipse are great answers for that. Teclipse is also good for its 4 times dark weakness, which is also immune to that. Phaseon can also bring heavy momentum because it is one of the best pivots in the entire game. And Ferroglyph, Joltooth, and Wakalaka are of course really good Lumians for Bane of Haste teams. And like I said, defensive teammates is very simple. You just want to run defensive stuff that can run Bane of Haste if you want to go in that direction. But because its typing is super weak, you can also run common defensive cores like Luminami, Obsidian, Tyrex, Harvestek, Chartiki, Stratosaur. There is just a bunch of defensive Lumians that you can run with it, and that is kind of saying it to its weakness because Hollibunch doesn't really have anything specific it wants to watch out for. It has to watch out for a lot of things, which is one of its weakness. So with that out of the way, let's talk about the conclusion and my thoughts on Hollibunch. So overall, I don't really know what to think about Hollibunch. Hollibunch, in my opinion, looks to be a decent Lumian, but because of its defensive typing, its very slow nature, and the fact that most of this metagame likes to hit plant and light type super effectively, and Hollibunch not providing anything other than just pure damage, and Bane of Haste not being one of the best strategies in this entire game, Hollibunch looks to be a Lumian that would benefit heavily from others, but those Lumians will not benefit from Hollibunch. That is just my opinion on it. If you want to argue with me, go do that. And finally, like the video if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you are new to the channel. And of course, remember that Zulong is still a dumpster fire.